Hello everybody, today we are going to do the poem Tiger in a Zoo. I'm going to recite one stanza and then discuss and explain the lines of the stanza one by one. Now, before we begin, I would like to tell you that what the poem basically is about. Now, this poem has been written by Leslie Norris, which explains the agony and helplessness of a caged tiger that lives in a zoo. The poet explains that his life could be what his life could be if he had been a free animal. The poet has tried to explain about the condition of animals that are actually caged by human beings just for their fun and frolic. Now, if we move to the poem, the first stanza is: he stalks in his vivid stripes, a few steps off his cage, on pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage. Now, look at the first line, children. He stalks in his vivid stripes. Now, vivid stripes means everybody can visualize a tiger, which is a striped beast of prey. Okay. Now he stalks. Stalks actually refers to following. Alright, not a positive word, it's a negative word which actually means following someone without their permission. Now, why has it been called stalking in his vivid stripe? Because the tiger does not have much of space to move. So what is the tiger doing is actually moving in the same area, the confined space, repeatedly. Look at the second line. A few steps off his cage. Few steps here refers to the limited area and periphery that the tiger has. On pads of velvet quiet. Okay. On pads of velvet quiet. Now here, pads of velvet quiet does not refer at all to any velvety of soft surface which is there inside the cage. Okay. It actually refers to the paws of the animal. Alright. And why is it the paws of the animals are called the velvety? Because when a tiger walks, no one can gauge or hear the steps. So when it is actually putting his paws on the surface, you see that it does not make any noise at all, and that's why they're referred to as velvety quiet. Okay. Last line of the stanza, in his quiet rage. Now, why has it been called quiet rage? Because obviously nobody can be happy about being confined in a limited space. We have like beautiful bungalows and penthouses that we people are actually accommodating now, but being inside, the restraint that we have, that we cannot move off our houses even when it's a medical emergency, do we like it? No. So same way, when a tiger has no limitation at all and can be very free spirited animal and roam around across in the jungle, it has been caged inside. So obviously it is not very happy. And quiet rage, why? Because there's no use expressing the rage. It has already tried and there's no use. So that's why the tiger is in its quiet rage, sitting in the cage. Alright, this is the first stanza, children, and let's do the figure of speeches also with the stanza. So the first figure of speech that you can gauge, I think you can guess also, is personification. In the first line, he stalks in his vivid stripes. So a tiger has been turned into a person. Alright. The second figure of speech that you can see is metaphor, which comes in the last second line of the paragraph. Pads of velvet quiet. So velvety quiet, which has been referred to the paws of the animal. So it will be a metaphor. Third figure of speech, which will be in the whole poetry, is imagery, which actually is when the poet uses its lyrical language to express something which actually helps you imagine it in front of your eyes. So that imagery which has been created, stalks in the velvet, in his velvet stripes, or the pads of velvet quiet, or the quiet rage, these are all what? These are all, it is all metaphor. Imagery. Alright. The last figure of speech which has been used in the same stanza, in the last line you can underline quiet rage, which is an oxymoron. Oxymoron. Now, what's an oxymoron is when you're using two adjectives which are absolutely contrasting or contradictory to each other. So can we see quiet and rage? When you're angry, you cannot be quiet. Okay. And you cannot be quiet with anger. So two contradictions which have been used together, quiet, rage. Let's move to the second stanza now. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the waterhole where the plum deer pass. Now, the first line, he should be lurking in shadow. What actually should a tiger be doing right now, children? Actually, the tiger should not be behind the cage, behind the bars, but it should have been in the jungle. And if it would have been in the jungle, it will obviously be looking for something to eat. Alright, so he should actually be hunting a beast right now. All right, so he should be lurking in the shadow. Lurking actually refers to, looking for something, greedy for something, lurking. Okay, so he didn't wait for, here the tiger is actually lurking in a shadow, means it's hiding behind something, looking for some hunt that it could eat. Sliding through long grass, obviously a tiger does not attack the hunt or the animal or the prey, okay, suddenly. It makes its move very cautiously. So right now it is sliding in the long grass. Sliding means moving very smoothly through long grass, okay, very long grass, near the water hole where the plum deer pass. Now in every jungle, children, in any ecosystem, a water place is very important, the source of water, whether it's a pond, a lake, or a river, because all the animals during a day once or twice would definitely visit that place. Okay, so here where should the tiger be? Actually hiding behind long grass near the water hole, where definitely a deer is going to come. Okay, so this is what the tiger should actually be doing instead of being behind the cage. Okay, here also imagery has been used. Apart from imagery, you don't have any other figure of speech. Now children, there's one figure of speech more which has been used, which is enjambment, which actually refers to that when the poet moves on to the next line without using any punctuation mark. So the second line you can see is striding through long grass near the water hole. There's no punctuation mark, so one line onto the other, it's called enjambment. ENJAMBMENT. We're going to send you a complete list of figure of speech, and I'm going to do them again if we meet in the class, then otherwise in online classes only. All right, so these are the two figure of speeches used, imagery and enjambment. Let's move to the third stanza now. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. Now what actually other than that the tiger should be doing? The tiger should actually be snarling around. Snarling, making some noises, okay, to scare the people and animal around. Okay, he should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. What actually it should be doing? It should actually be moving around the edge of the jungle, which is very near the village. Okay, the villagers have made their houses. So what is the tiger going to do? It's going to scare the people who live in the houses which have been made and constructed near the edge of the jungle. Okay, how is the tiger going to scare them? Bearing his white fangs. Fangs refers to teeth, and his claws, and terrorizing the village. That is the other thing that tiger is usually supposed to do. Okay, now are there any literary devices here? Yes, you'll have onomatopoeia for snarling. Okay, onomatopoeia. I think you'll be familiar with that figure of speech, which actually refers to words which denote sounds. All right, so snarling. All right, now the last stanza if we come to, but he's locked in a concrete cell. No, last second stanza, I'm sorry. But he's locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Now, instead of being in the jungle, instead of being near the edge of the forest, scaring the villagers, what is the tiger actually doing? He's locked in a concrete cell. Concrete cell. Cell refers to the cage. Concrete refers to the cage which has been made of concrete. His strength behind bars. He has been locked behind bars, means he's inside the cage. The strength that he could use to hunt his food, the strength that he could use to actually make something useful, it's not being utilized, and he's behind the bars, stalking the length of his cage. Again, the use of the word stalking, which refers to moving in the same area, going around in the same area, ignoring visitors. Now obviously in the current situation, children, we know that the tiger is not going to be very happy about meeting the visitors who are coming into the zoo to look and have fun out of it. So it's actually ignoring visitors, not even looking in their direction. All right, now here again you have personification. All right, and you have alliteration, that is behind bars. Burr. The sound of burr has been repeated, so behind bars. All right, now we have the last stanza. Okay, he hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Now see children, the last stanza actually refers to how the day for a tiger in a zoo ends. So he hears the voice at night. Okay, the last voice that he hears at night is that of a patrolling car which goes outside the zoo or maybe inside the zoo, okay, and stares with his brilliant eyes. The tiger has beautiful eyes, so with his eyes he looks onto the sky. Now here we come to know that maybe it is an open terrace, okay, you don't have a roof in the cage, so the tiger is looking up, all right, looking at the stars. That's the only thing that he is free to do. Okay, he can actually look at the stars, the brilliant stars, and be happy about them. Okay, therefore he stares in the stars in the night and tries to divert his attention and his thought. He does not want to be focused on how caged he is in the zoo. All right, so that ends the poem, children. So it's actually a poem which talks about or brings about the stark contrast in an animal's life when the animal is in cage, and what actually the animal is supposed to do when it is not in the cage. So this is that is what the poem focuses on, with 2 stanzas which tell you what actually the tiger should be doing, and again 2-3 stanzas to tell you that what actually it is doing when behind bars. The poet is just trying to bring out the contrast. Now the question answers are, I think we have only 2 question answers which are to be done in the copy, which will follow suit, okay, when the link is uploaded, and please copy them in your copy as per the convenience. Make a list in the book or in the copy. It would be advisable to make in the copy of the figure of speeches along with the lines where the figure of speeches have been used. Okay, you have quite many here. You have onomatopoeia, you have metaphor, you have alliteration, you have personification, and you have oxymoron in the first stanza. So you should know them thoroughly. Alright, children? Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.